Hey there.
Hey, Brian Murphy, Pat Welter with WRAL. This is the glamorous life of sports writers and sports broadcasters. We're walking to the ACC Tournament today in Charlotte at the Spectrum Center. Pat, we've been here for a couple days, gotten to see most every team. What are your thoughts of how the ACC looks? And let's start with Duke, the number one seed, the number one overall team in the country.
Vulnerable. And they certainly look like they weren't, at least at the end of the regular season. But those two injuries creep up, Brian, in the game versus UNC, where they lose Caleb Foster until at least the Final Four. They lose Patrick Gongba for at least the ACC Tournament. And I think we saw that last night versus Florida State.
Yeah, not a word you often associate with Duke, vulnerable, but I think they were. You know, they basically played six guys. Harris only played a couple of minutes. They basically had to play sometimes without a point guard. Caden Boozer was left open and didn't shoot very well. And so they kind of turned it over to Cameron Boozer, let him play point forward, and got Hamenia in there. Jon Scheyer's still working on this team, but foul trouble was a problem in the semifinals or in the quarterfinals, and it could be a problem again in the semifinals when they take on Clemson.
Yeah, I mean, they quite literally had an emergency practice player promoted to the dress roster last night. Brock Davis, right?
Yeah, Brian Davis's son. Those of you old enough might remember Brian Davis from the 91 and 92 national championship teams. His son now is sort of an elevated practice player. Didn't get any minutes and don't expect him to, but it's a sign of just how thin this Duke team is going into March.
Yeah, Jon Scheyer said it's going to be kind of point guard by committee, because to your point, we saw Caden Boozer, who I thought looked really good in his role all season, and was maybe underutilized given, his recruiting prowess, his genetics, being a Boozer, but he got exposed a little bit by Florida State. Maybe some of that's just the matchup, because Florida State is red hot, one of the hottest teams in the country, coming in here to the ACC tournament, and has a lot of athleticism and length. And yeah, he got in foul trouble. He's not been a good outside shooter all season. I think we're good across here. Try not to get run over as we make a live YouTube video. That would be very 2026. But yeah, I mean, he didn't shoot the ball well from the outside. It affected their spacing. And I'm losing Patrick Gongba as well, I think affected that, because the 1-2 punch with Gongba and Cameron Boozer in the post all season has been so lethal. And now when you just have the one big, and Malik Brown, as good as he is defensively, not quite as giant as Patrick Gongba. We saw that. But they still won the game. And Jon Scheyer, as good of a coach as he's been, man, I mean, that timeout, down 8 with like 12 minutes to go, and then they go on an 18-2 run, just so Duke.
Yeah, and the team that I think everyone was hoping they would play tonight, or at least those of us in the Triangle, North Carolina, the third meeting between the two powers, didn't come to be. Carolina, again, playing without Caleb Wilson, as they will for the rest of the season. Got a monster game from Henry Basar, but they found themselves in an 18-point deficit in the second half and couldn't dig out of it. They tried, but couldn't get there, and a lot of question marks about Hubert Davis's team now going into the NCAA tournament.
I mean, I'm so tired of having every single game I cover of theirs be a complete referendum on Hubert Davis as a coach. We've been talking a little bit about day trading on this week, learning a little bit from our colleague Chris Lee, and it's like, yeah, Hubert Davis is a day-to-day stock, and right now the stock is down. It was a little bit up to end the regular season when they, ironically beat Clemson at home without Caleb Wilson. But yeah, I mean, this team is just very vulnerable. They never seem to outcoach their opponent. All they can hope to do is out-hustle an opponent, which is, Hubert Davis's DNA, but like for whatever reason, his teams don't seem to share it. But it certainly seemed to sink in with Seth Trimble in the locker room last night, who's, this team's senior leader, and he's like, it's March. Like, this is it. One and done the rest of the way now. And you just hope like the rest of the team sinks that through, because how many times do they show up where they play, thinking just because they're North Carolina, they're going to win, and not understanding fully that the team on the other side wants to beat North Carolina, and how many 12 or 13 seeds that they're going to play, or whatever they end up being in the first round, are going to be dying to upset Carolina in that first round. They're on upset watch.
Yeah, Hubert Davis talked last night in the post-game press conference about hunger and thirst. He talked to his team for 3 straight days about playing with hunger and thirst, practicing with hunger and thirst, preparing with hunger and thirst, and I don't think he saw hunger or thirst last night.
No.
In that game. They just didn't play with a purpose until late in that game, and this is a team that just doesn't have a lot of offensive weapons anymore. When you get past Vasar and maybe Trimble, the role players are going to have to step up. Someone's going to have a big game come the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, I mean, it was Luka Bogovac who had a career high when they beat Clemson, you know, and one of the final home game of the regular season, and he's like a nothing burger last night. Some guys like sitting courtside who were UNC fans were calling him out, like, 44, you got no points. 44, what are you gonna do? We need you. Bogovac, you know, not an American native, but he clearly heard him. He hit a 3 on cue. He didn't point at the fans, but it's like, where was that the rest of the game? Like, he looked out of sorts. I did think, like, Stevenson played well, and he's gonna need to, right? Stepping in to the starting power forward spot. You know, I was at a workout with him and his family story I got coming out next week. Like, kid's putting in work and it's showing. He's got to be even more aggressive, I think, offensively. Same goes for Trimble. Like, you need somebody to drive this bus, man. And it's a team of maybe just too many nice guys. Like, they're really lacking Caleb Wilson's edge, clearly, since he got hurt.
Yeah, Vasar, career high in points, career high in rebounds. Still wasn't enough against the Clemson team that, you know, also lost their starting center. Doesn't get enough attention.
Yep.
He got hurt in the opener for the Tigers down here in Charlotte, and they still won without him. I don't want to turn it into a referendum on Hubert Davis, but a loss in the first round of the tournament. So you end the season, lost to Duke, lost to Clemson, maybe a loss in the first round. There's just going to be a lot of noise. Let's talk about NC State, because their coach made a lot of noise. After their game. They lost to Virginia. Virginia's big man just dominated that game. 8 blocks, forced NC State into a terrible shooting night. But I think the big news came after the game when Will Wade.
Yeah, and you could argue we had it before the game when I was talking to some people around the program just about the LSU rumors, which has just been kind of something that started on a message board. Maybe it's wish casting, who the heck knows? Because if there's a school that has a crazier hiring process with more cooks in the kitchen than North Carolina, it is LSU, a school that Wade has already coached and been let go from, but there are some among that LSU community that want him back. Mind you, they still currently have a basketball coach. They might not for much longer.
Well, these rumors first got started in October when they were going through the whole Will Wade mess. I mean, I'm sorry, the Lane Kiffin mess.
Right.
And the governor basically told the AD, one of the reasons the AD is not there anymore, that he thought they should hire Will Wade. He was pushing for it, the governor, and then the governor went out and hired, or not the governor, but he made a lot of hires with the school. They hired the AD or the president, from McNeese State. So there are a lot of connections pointing Will Wade back to LSU. He says, hey, we're going to win big at NC State.
And he wants to be here for a while. He said he's already had conversations with the administration about the things, you know, they need to work on going forward, because this season was an experiment that, it's still being written, right? It's a story that's still being written. Like, they're in the NCAA tournament.
Right.
And, you know, Wade shot down the LSU rumors. A source I talked to before the game said that they were total bull. But again, like, you take all that with a grain of salt, because that's coming from Will Wade's side, that's coming from his staff side. We don't know the full extent of the LSU side, and like, this could still become some sort of leverage play if LSU does decide to move on. And, you know, we see this all the time where, like, a coach uses this to get some sort of raise. I'm not saying Will Wade's going to do that, but, like, this thing is ongoing, and so is their season. You know, they've been handicapped by their size. We saw that in the Virginia game here in Charlotte, as well as they tried to overcome it. I was really impressed by just, like, the game plan, the coaching, the execution, contrast to Carolina, the effort that we saw from NC State, who finished the regular season really, really weakly.
Yeah, I mean, Wade said after the game, and I think this is true, like, they don't pay close enough attention to all the details. They don't nail all the details, and that's what's costing them these games. I mean, they've blown a number of games, a handful of games. They probably should have won. Their NCAA tournament seed would be much higher. They would feel much better about their season, but, you know, some of it I think is size, some of it is quite frankly, Darian Williams hasn't been the player that I think a lot of people thought he'd be.
Yeah.
And some of it is just this team it's missing just that one little thing. And I think NC State fans would agree. I think Will Wade would agree. This isn't the kind of roster that he wants to have, and that if he stays at NC State, I think he'll eventually have.
Yeah, I mean, the way it's been explained to me is like, and I think this is public knowledge too, is like Wade came here expecting one NIL number. He got another. And, they are a distant third, maybe not a distant third, but a third here in the triangle as far as money and resources to Duke and UNC. And, one quote I got was like, take away Henry Vasar and Caleb Wilson. Not just our NC State and UNC maybe on an equal level talent-wise, but on financially. Right. That's a pretty big slice out. I don't know if that's exact, but that's something I got here in Charlotte. So that lets you know, like, the deck that NC State's playing with, and when they put so much of it into Darian Williams, didn't have enough of it for a big, have to go bargain hunting with Van Allen Lubin. And as good as he's, like, been, you're also, like, still living with the sins that Carolina had last year, where, like, it handicapped them all season too, as good of a player as he was.
Yeah, they're just not big enough. That really showed up against Virginia, which had 2 7-footers. One of them blocked 8 shots, altered countless others, and really when NC State had a chance there late in that game, he blocks a shot. Matt Abel misses the rim almost completely because that big 7-footer's down there, and that was the end of NC State. We'll see where they end up in the tournament, likely a 9 seed, a 10 seed,
maybe even 11.
Yeah, likely not in the first 4. The first 4, but I guess it's possible they could end up in Dayton in the first 4. And given where they were in February, early February, that'd be a disappointment. Given where the program's been the last few years, outside of the miracle run in 24, that would be an improvement. That's the problem with Wade, right? What they're doing is improving on where they've been, but it's just not quite as to the heights that they thought maybe they could get to.
Yeah, and you contrast that with, like, they just lost to Virginia, who had Ryan Odom as a coach, who, not exactly a secret, was a target maybe for NC State, and they're having the season, this regular season that was promised to us, right? Like the Red Reckoning,
right,
going to be among the best teams in the ACC, going to make the tournament. Well, they're going to make the tournament, but they were not among really the best teams in the ACC, and Virginia, had that year and didn't have the size problems that NC State had, and didn't have all the drama. And they've got a chance here. They're still alive in the ACC tournament, as our Final Four here, as we're taping this, are Virginia versus Miami and Duke versus Clemson tonight. As we pull up on the Spectrum Center here to our left.
Yeah, you can see it right there, the Spectrum Center, where we spent many of our days over the last week. Last thing we'll finish with. ACC got 4 teams in the tournament last year, and one of those teams in North Carolina was pretty controversial selection. This year they're looking at 8 possibly, according to the bracketologists. That's an improvement, and I think Commissioner Jim Phillips, who's been on this warpath, quite frankly, to improve basketball in the league, deserves a lot of credit. The move from 20 conference games to 18 seems to have worked. And then give the schools credit. We talked about Will Wade and the investment NC State made. We talked about Virginia and the investment they made in Ryan Odom, Miami. Florida State, which probably won't make the tournament, but was playing as good as anybody down the stretch. Schools are really investing in basketball, and I think we're seeing it too with some of the coaching changes. Syracuse undergoing a coaching change, Georgia Tech. This is a league that has been built on basketball. Can they elevate basketball to where they're once again the best conference in the country?
I mean, I know we're bummed out that we didn't get to see, our triangle rivalries twice. I mean, you know more about this than I do, but it does seem like the scheduling helped. I mean, I know it certainly did for Carolina as far as what they did in the non-conference, and really a lot of our schools where all these other conferences were benefiting off of playing well in the non-conference, scheduling to the net, rising in the net in the non-conference, and then having that almost be a self-fulfilling prophecy within the conference. Where Carolina got in last year, and it's they don't have any quad 1 wins, or they have 1 quad 1 win, depending on how you sliced it. But Carolina got in because they were playing great basketball. They just didn't get any quad 1 wins because of the way the ACC schedule was breaking out. They were playing good teams, then that just didn't reflect it that way.
Yeah, and they did a much better job this year. NC State's loss at Notre Dame, which looks like a killer, was only a quad 2 loss, because Notre Dame, even though they had a bad regular season in the ACC, played pretty well in the non-conference. And they were elevated, and that's, if we're going to use these numbers, then you better use them the right way.
Yeah.
And so we'll see on Sunday how many teams they get in. I mean, obviously Duke is probably the only legitimate Final Four contender, but there's probably some teams, Virginia, maybe Clemson, that could
Miami, dark horse.
Yeah, that could go to the Sweet 16 and maybe make some noise.
Yeah, well, let's wrap it up here. As we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know what's going to happen tonight. I think Duke's going to beat Clemson. I think Duke is still going to win this conference. I think Duke is still going to make the Final Four. I haven't lost my faith. I think they can win the national title. I know what's going to happen eventually for John Shire. Until then, he's just going to be, the people that are Duke haters are going to, not give him any credit until he does it.
Yeah, well, thanks for joining us here on YouTube or wherever you're getting this video. And check out WRAL.com for all of our coverage the rest of the week here in Charlotte.
Yeah, we're about to go into the Spectrum Center. See us tonight.